This is the most important one. It's called the clarity shift. So keep that in mind. Make that, like I said, get your notebook out and write real big clarity shift. And I think it's going to be important. So clarity shift, kind of the tagline, if you will, is stop selling disputes and start selling outcomes. Okay. When you change what you sell from AKA credit repair or whatever else you're doing to actually achieving a goal, everything aligns. Your marketing aligns, your client journey aligns, and your team aligns. Everybody knows what the goal and the outcome of the situation for each client coming in is. The client knows. So everybody knows what the outcome is going to be for the business. Okay. So I'm going to give you some talking points. The number one growth killer in the industry is vagueness. Let me say that again. The number one growth killer in any industry is vagueness. Most credit professionals, financial professionals say stuff like, I sell credit repair. Let me show you my 100-point improvement. But that phrase is actually meaningless to your consumers, absolutely meaningless. And then you have this very vague marketing strategy, right? Because basically you're saying, I help everyone. I do credit repair. I help everyone. But that is not your audience. Your audience is everyone. And your audience is not waking up in the morning saying, hey, I really want credit repair today. No, they're waking up in the morning and they're saying, I gotta get out of this place. I cannot stand living in this neighborhood. I cannot stand living in this small house. The ceiling's falling down, water's leaking all over the place. I want a home for my family with a picket fence. I want to have a dog. I want to do. That's what they're waking up to. They're waking up to, I want a better car. I'm tired of driving this car that I'm not even sure if I'm going to get to work on time because it's probably going to break down. It needs new tires. The brakes barely work. That's what they're waking up to. Or, I just need help. I can't handle the phone ringing off the hook. And all it is collection companies harassing me, and I don't have the money to pay them. And I don't know how to get relief from this. I feel like a loser. That's what they're waking up to. They're not one time is a person waking up to going, wow, today I want to go call someone to help me with their credit, right? Or help me with my credit. They're not saying that. So why are you saying that? Why are you talking to your audience in that manner? That's not what they want. They may come to you because you said that, because they realize from their understanding that they need that in order to get this, but you missed the whole message. And so you made your message a service that you hold 100% responsibility for. Okay. So again, the number one the number one growth killer in industry is vagueness, and I don't care what business you're in, it's the number one growth killer. When you sell the goal instead of the task, aka credit repair or budgeting, you become the guide, and people follow guides. Let me say that again. You become the guide, and people follow guides. You're not the hero. You should never strive to be the hero. The hero holds all the responsibility for all the results on their shoulders. That's the hero. You don't want to be the hero. You want your clients to be the hero. You want to be the guide to help them become the hero. That's your job. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in shift number 2. But I think this is most important, understanding that clarity shift. You need to know your audience. You need to know who you're talking to. And you're selling an outcome, not a task, not your service, your outcome. And I've said this to you guys many, many times, and I hope you can really grab a hold of this concept. If you are in, let's say, credit repair, or you're a financial coach doing budgeting for people, that's one thing you do. In the ladder of all the values that you can provide for a consumer, that's one ring in that ladder. So if you think about it, I was a first-time home buyer specialist, right? So credit repair, helping people with their credit, was one ring in the ladder. And some people didn't even need that. So they might step over that ring in the process and the journey. But the journey was so much more than that. We might have looked at budgeting. We might have looked at debt to income ratios and did what I call the money game. We might have had to go out and get down payment assistance. Obviously, we were probably going to get the loan and what's the best loan for them. Does that make sense? So your service as a credit professional or a financial professional is just one ring in the value ladder. So hopefully you can kind of think about that this weekend or this week. Sit down and think about, if my service is just one ring, what's the ladder? What are they climbing up to get to? How am I going to help them get there? And how am I going to make sure that they get there? This is the clarity shift. And this is so important. I became the first time home buyer specialist. That's what I named myself. And I started getting leads from everybody. I didn't have to search for it. Okay. I didn't have to struggle for marketing and wonder how I'm going to get my next client, because I was known for that. And people started calling me the expert. I didn't give myself that title. They gave that title to me. And why do people give titles to people? Because they are proven to get the results that they say they're going to give. You can't do that if you are credit repair. I say this because it was said to me, you can't be great at everything, but you can be great. You can become an expert in one thing. You can become really, really good in one thing, right? And you can be known for that one thing. So think about that. There's not much competition when you have a niche. There's barely any. So think on that. So I'm going to ask you a question here. If your marketing, your onboarding, and team all point towards the same specific outcome, would your clients be more motivated? I'm going to answer that for you. It'll be a big yes. They will be much more motivated to want to work with you and go through the process and the journey. Because the journey's not always easy, right? Anything we do, the journey's not always easy. And that's part of the transformation that we're offering, is overcoming. And our systems and our processes, because we know what the outcome is, our team can align and we can all discuss how we're going to get this person to the outcome with the least resistance, with the least obstacles, with the least pain as possible. How do we help them overcome all these things that they're going to have to overcome? How powerful is that message? How powerful it is to have those meetings with your team because you are all clear on the outcome. All right. So when you're clear on the outcome, you can measure it, you can celebrate it, and you can replicate it. And then you can say every client comes in and they're going to go through this process and this is their outcome. And then you can watch it, you can measure it, you can celebrate people going to that outcome. You can then, what I call, feedback and refine. Continuously looking at your processes and say, how can I make it more efficient? How can I make it more automated? How can I make it the client experience better? How can I increase the retention rate of my clients? How can I increase their conversion rate? You get to focus on that, which is the growth of your business, because you know the outcome and you know the journey the client's going to go through, and your team knows and everybody knows what has to happen for that client, right? Because please don't sell something you can't deliver. Please don't sell something you can't deliver. And if you're selling credit repair, you can't deliver. I'm sorry. You might have some special clients that get up 100 points, but how many of your clients that you're not posting that may have even lost points because they worked with you? And not because they worked with you, because you didn't shift the responsibility to them. So that's our number 2 we're going to talk about, is going to be a shift. But before we do the responsibility shift, but before we do that, I want you to implement something for me today. Okay. I want you to sit down and implement something for me today. I've talked about this before, so I'm going to talk about it again though. I want you to rewrite your offer. Okay. So here's the formula. You're going to say, I help who get to specific goal so that they can result. So I'm going to give you an example of mine so that you can be able to have an example that might help you. I help first-time homebuyers get mortgage ready so that they can finally move into their dream home. So let me show you that broken down into that formula. I help who? First-time homebuyers get to specific goal. What is their specific goal? Homebuyer mortgage ready so they can result buy their dream home. Does that make sense? See if you can do that. Audit your websites, your emails, your sales calls. How many times are you saying credit repair, budgeting, spending tracking, instead of saying stuff like mortgage ready, financial freedom, or approved? Okay, so those are the words they really want to hear. In Level Up Score, we have actually built in that clarity feature. because I think it's so important, because clarity is so important. So every plan is defined by a goal. You go into Level Up Score and you pick the goal for your consumer, right? So we have four major goals in there right now. It's buy a house, which happens to be most popular, great functional credit, PG business funding, and we have buy a car, right? So those are kind of the top four things we hear most consumers wanting. So you get to select that goal. So now the plan that Level Up Score is going to create for your clients is specific to the outcome. So then we say, these are the things to do to reach this outcome that you want, right? And so we also have milestones. We also do success tracking because it is a change report. We congratulate them when they do something right. And then we also notify and inform them when something isn't right, right? So those are two very important aspects. The client sees where they're going and what's next. And this is really important because they want to see that. So let's think about it this way. This is kind of like my mind shift thing that I want to give you today on this specific clarity shift. Okay, the first tip. Clarity creates confidence. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence drives action, and action produces results. Let's say that again, because I want you to think about this. If looking at Level Up Score's action plan, you can see this played out really well. Clarity creates confidence. Client comes in, they say their goal is to buy a house. You have a plan from Level Up Score that says, buy a home. Here's the 10 steps you need to do. Clarity creates confidence. And they look at it, those are the 10 steps I need to do. You didn't just give me two, hang me on for another month and give me two more. You gave me all the steps. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence drives action. So now they're actually going to start taking action on the action plan that you provided to them, because that action plan you have helped them understand that's going to help them get to their goal, right? And action produces results. Okay. So remember that, because we're going to go into the second shift here in a second. But I just want you to understand that confused clients don't buy, disputes don't sell, outcomes do. Just say clarity is powerful, but it only works if your clients actually do their part.